Today's Free Zone success story, transformational story, is Beth Kraszewski, and it's a real treat to kind of do this commentary on Beth's interview because Beth's father has been in Strategic Coach for 30 years, and there's something that she did which is extraordinarily admirable when she tells her story about the COVID year. And it's something that I really take a lot of pride in because coach clients really approach the COVID differently from the general population. And that is, they used it as an opportunity to actually create a new kind of value in other people's lives some of them were very pessimistic, some of them were very depressed, some of them, were looking at the future and seeing only bleakness ahead. And they got them to switch their mindsets so that they kept measuring their progress backwards, which means in coach terms that you're in the game. You're not measuring yourself against some unrealistic ideal, which is in the gap. And I feel so great about that, because these are very fundamental strategic coach tools. And Beth is just, when you meet her, is just one of the most positive people you've ever met. And so the combination of Beth just being a very positive person and having 30 years of strategic coach history and being her own entrepreneur and having her own family, and then, really just flipping a bad year into a good year. It's a really, I take an enormous amount of pleasure and pride that, that was part of our coaching relationship, that she told her story from inside the experience of being in the coach and mastering coach mindsets.
So I feel like I was born with the entrepreneur gene. From an early age, I was wanting to invent things, create things. I probably wasn't always the best at being managed. I think that's probably a symptom of us entrepreneurs. And so I ended up getting into the wealth management space as an entrepreneur. I come from a family of a father who was also a wealth manager, entrepreneur, and that had a big impact on how I decided to get into the industry. I was driving to my own personal strategic coach session, which was 7 years ago. And as I was driving to coach that day, coincidentally, I was just thinking as I was driving, at the time we had a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 2-month-old when I was driving. So life was busy with kids. And I started to think okay, I am not going to get everything right with parenting these kids, but there has to be some big things along the way that I can just focus on certain big items. So I started to think about my own parents and what were some of those big things that they had done for us to raise 3 wonderful children. And when I think about it, it's actually my dad's participation in strategic coach. He joined coach when I was probably around 10 or 12 years old. And so I have a dramatic memory of what life was like before dad was in coach and after dad started coach. And so we were raised with, these mindsets, this entrepreneurial mindset. The strategic coach is so great to create. Always knowing that our futures are bigger than our past. Always knowing that we didn't necessarily have to work harder. It was more about figuring out where our talents were and focusing on our strengths, building teams and relationships around us to help support our strengths and in return supporting our team members' strengths. And so I look at that mindset and that confidence that built in us kids, and that was so important for us. And we went on our summer vacation to Colorado. And for the first time, dad did not call back to the office. while we were on vacation. He was so proud of himself, and we were so glad that he wasn't distracted, because what would always inevitably happen is he would call the office, something wasn't going well, and so what he had expected to be a 30-minute call really turned into an entire day, and then he was upset the rest of vacation. So it was the first time, and I would say overall, seeing his presence change in our family, being able to be present with us and not always being distracted by work. I also saw that his perspective changed as far as it wasn't only about making more money and growing things bigger, but it really became about what is the bigger purpose of this entrepreneurial company that he was running. A little over a year ago, with going through everything when COVID hit in 2020, and with the way that our compensation works, COVID hit, the stock market is down, and our revenue was down significantly in a matter of weeks. It was a major hit. And there would have been this tendency, and trust me, there were days that there was, where it just felt like I wanted to lay down on the floor, hide in a cave. But the strategic coach mindset helps to take those events that can be so challenging. And when I say so challenging, like earth shattering, and say, wait a second, I don't have to see this as a challenge. I can see this as an opportunity. And I can focus on what can I do to serve others right now, as opposed to purely focusing on myself. What opportunities can come out of this time? I think most of us can look back historically and see, whether it's in the history of our country, in the history of other companies, that times of challenge can actually prove to be times of opportunity. And strategic coach helps us as entrepreneurs, not only helps us, it's like the lifeblood to keeping our mindset in that space to be able to create opportunity in times of the greatest challenges. The biggest opportunity I learned is that we jumped into a mode of trying to fix things. And was true during that time, looking back on it, was that a lot of that was out of our control. But what I found was, when I focused on, because a lot of our clients, they were really, really, really struggling during that time. I found that when I focused on serving them, when I focused on listening to them, reaching out to them, that made a dramatic, dramatic change. The other thing that came during COVID, which some of us experienced, is that we took our family and went out to Colorado for an entire month in June. And I don't think that I would have realized that it was possible before to balance this amazing family experience, but also to be able to work at the same time. And I found that during that time out of the office, even though I was working, I was extremely creative. And so during that challenging time, realizing of other ways that I could approach work that created a lot more creativity and impact. As strategic coach, we focus on measuring our progress from where we've come from, as opposed to, measuring ourselves to other people, or measuring ourselves to where we think we should be. And so quite often our clients are in that same mindset of just struggling and seeing everything that's negative. And so with our clients, we focus on where have they come from, what are the achievements that they have made, and focusing and saying, to be able to focus on those and acknowledge those items, it creates so much momentum and power going forward, to just attract more good things into our lives. Quite often, we think that we have to say yes to a lot of things to create growth. And coach has taught me that that's actually the opposite. It's so important to understand the things that we need to say no to, so we can focus on the yeses that make such a big difference. The world will tell us that we have to work harder. We have to work harder. But what strategic coach tells us is to figure out what our unique ability is, and then focus on our unique ability and not necessarily work harder. The world will tell us that we need to earn our time off, that we have to work hard, work hard, work hard, and then we earn time away from work. Where a strategic coach teaches us that that time away from work is key rejuvenation that we need in order to be optimal, to be able to have our greater purpose. The world will tell us that we should professionally just get on this plan to be able to retire someday. And in coach, retire is considered a four-letter word. And it's not because we should just work ourselves, to death for our entire lives. It's about really fine-tuning what is it that brings us energy? Where is it that our talents are best utilized and focusing on that? And if we do that, why would we ever want to stop working? Especially if we're taking all this great free time and building our relationships with our families as we want. Why would we ever retire? So to me, it's all about the mindset. Unique ability are the things, my best filter for it. It's the things that everyone, I'm like, say, wait a second, why is this so hard for everyone else to do? Of course, like this is just what I do. So identifying unique ability can be a little bit difficult at first because it's so close to who we are. It's the center of who we are. But it's those things where we realize that it's energizing us, that it's bringing purpose and value and improving the lives around each other, and that we're getting paid for it. So those are what I consider to be the criteria of unique ability. So with understanding unique ability, one of the greatest things is understanding what I'm not good at, what is not my unique ability. And instead of working on those weaknesses, focusing on the strengths, and then finding the other team members and people to come in and fill in for those greatest weaknesses. Um, Unique ability is a concept that I've known about for probably 30 years. So it's actually really difficult for me to understand what life would be like without. But I do truly believe that understanding my unique ability is the center to creating, to fulfilling my greater purpose in life, to making sure that my relationships are strong in my life, to making more money, and to also making sure that I am able to take that time for myself. So the core of the flourishing, I think, in almost every area of my life is that understanding of unique ability. I would say to my fellow colleagues out in the world that are in similar work, um, I believe that mindset is the most important thing that we can focus on. There's so much that we don't have control over, but what we do have control over is our mindset. And it's so powerful to create the results that we want in all aspects of our life. Here's my tangible results from being in coach. At the age of probably 35, I was already making over $1 million at the same time of having a baby, 2-year-old and 4-year-old, having a strong marriage. It's there's tangible results with the revenue that I've seen, but to me, the greatest payoff, I'm not willing to take the revenue if everything else is screwed up in my life. And so finding that balance where I can make a ton of money and also that the things and the relationships that are so important to me, that those are flourishing as well.